Story 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to remove my son from the football team his half-brother is on? I dated X for around 3 years when I got pregnant. Things were fine, but when I was 5 months along, X started saying he wasn't sure this was the right time to have a kid. I figured he was looking for an out, so I directly asked him if he wanted to be a father. He then admitted that he already had 2 kids, a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. I had no idea that he had other kids. We broke up, and I said I was willing to split custody, but he said that split custody/child support with 3 different women was going to be too much for him to handle. To this day, he has never had contact with our son. My son is now 5. X never signed the birth certificate, so my husband was able to adopt my son without issues. We signed my son up to the local football club during lockdown, and sessions started in September. Teams go by age, so the teammates are all born within the same year and age up with that team. So he could hypothetically be in this exact team with this same lineup until he's 18 if no one leaves or joins. Obviously, that won't happen, but point is that hypothetically it could. He's had 4 sessions so far, and he's really liked it. He gets on with his teammates, the club is taking suitable precautions given current events, and everything seems to be going well in general. My husband has been taking my son to practice so far, but I did it for the first time last weekend. X was there. He saw me, came over, and asked which one of the boys was his son. I said that my son is, and pointed him out. Petty, I know, but something about him referring to a boy he's never met as his son just ticked me off. X started to make small talk, asking about my son and me. I was polite, but not exactly warm, and he walked away soon after. Later that day, I got a message over social media from X, and it was a big, long message, but the gist of it was that he wants me to remove my son from the football team. His reasoning is that his other son is unaware that my son exists, and this is going to cause issues for the other son, and he's worried the boys could get close only to then find out they're half-siblings. I said I wasn't removing him, and X called me an a-hole. I'm worried that I might be the a-hole because there are other teams in their age group for this club, but I feel like my son is settled in this one, so I don't want to move him. However, it is possible to move him, and this probably will cause issues further down the line. My son is aware that my husband is not his father, but doesn't know X's identity, and if he were to befriend his half-brother without knowing it, and I had to tell him, I don't know if making friends now will make it better or worse. Am I the a-hole for not taking him out of the team? It seemed to be cut and dried as I was reading this story, but you bring up some valid points. I mean, it's not just you're going beyond the petty here. There might come a time where he does ask who his father is, and it's going to take, and this situation could happen for quite a long time. Like you said, they could be in this team together when they turn 18. So, yeah, I would say that's I would say that you might want to talk to the son, see if he prefers any other teams. Maybe you would want to switch. There might be a reason. It doesn't seem like you're an a-hole because you're considering other alternatives. Story 2. Mom wants stepdad to adopt me so she can inherit me. What the title says. My parents are divorced, and now I live 100 meters away from my mom and stepdad. Oh joy. Mom has on several occasions suggested/insisted that my stepdad adopted me. Female, 32, unmarried, and with no children. Her reason is that if you perish before me, your dad gets half of what you own. According to her, she deserves all of what I have earned/achieved in my life, even though she's helped me earn exactly 0% of it, while also making my life 2,000% harder. She thinks this is 100% sane behavior, but it doesn't feel like it to me. No, It isn't. She doesn't have a say in this. She keeps insisting it. I mean, short of getting a lawyer and taking some sort of legal action against you, unfortunately, you're either going to have to put up with this kind of behavior or maybe, I don't know, move. I'm pretty sure you've got her blocked on social media, right? Story 3. Love it when one doc chews another out in ER. So about 6 years ago, I got to witness the best revenge on a rude, egotistical doc. So to start off, I have something called EOE, eosinophilic esophagitis, and you have no idea how many takes it took me to get that right. Basically, think of anaphylaxis, but instead of your airway swelling shut, your esophagus does. At this time, I did not know I had EOE. I thought that choking was due to anxiety, as I've always been told. Husband and I went to dinner, and it happened. I start choking. I don't panic because it's normal for me to get up and go to the bathroom to force myself to puke. Except this time, 20 minutes in, and I can't. I'm now starting to panic a little. Husband decided to take me to the ER because I could always throw up or manage to swallow lots of water before, but it's never taken this long. We get there, I walk in calm and tell the receptionist I'm choking. She panics and calls the doc immediately. He takes one look at me, standing there calmly and breathing through my nose, and says, "You're not choking. Waiting for triage." An hour later, I get called into triage. I tell them I'm choking. Get told, "You can breathe. You're not choking. It's probably just a sore throat since it's flu season." They'll call me back. Another hour, at this point 3 hours since it started, and they get me back. This doc insists I'm not choking. People choking can't breathe or talk, and obviously I can, and he can't see anything. For 2 more hours, 5 hours at this point, I use my phone and call the patient advocate of the hospital and say I'm in the ER and I need help and a second opinion, and the doc refuses. She comes down, talks to me, and gets a GI doc to look at me. Needless to say, within 30 minutes, he had me prepped for a scope. And boy, did the sparks fly. I had a severe impaction that because of how long it was I had waited, if I had waited even another hour, I was looking at my esophagus rupturing. He put the impaction in a baggie and threw it at the ER doc and tore into him in the middle of the ER about listening to patients. And even if he doesn't think someone is choking, and they say they are, he better have a consult for GI immediately and maybe pick up a book or two. Anyway, the GI doc who told me about EOE and explained what it was and what was happening never saw that ER doc again at the hospital. Well, I suppose you had to come back several times for a visit to follow up on this stuff. And yes, doctors need to listen to patients. Yeah, there are some people that lie. Yeah, we know that show that has the mantra, everybody lies. But yeah, this person is choking, can't breathe. Should have listened. You wouldn't have bodily waste thrown at you. Story 4. Comply with Bridezilla or leave? Okay. My friend, Gemma, tells me about how she and an entire group of bridesmaids left a wedding after their friend dared them to. So this all happened a few weeks ago. A longtime friend of Gemma's group was getting married in another state, but the day of the wedding, she suddenly had a problem with one girl who wore glasses, which she didn't have an issue with beforehand. The glasses girl told her she wouldn't wear them during the vows and pictures, but the bridezilla didn't want her wearing them at all and was screaming at her to not put them on for the rest of the day. Obviously, she couldn't do that since she needs to see. The argument got more heated until bridezilla gave her the ultimatum to take them off and keep them off or leave. This is when Gemma and the other bridesmaids stepped in, told bridezilla she was out of line, and that they would all leave if she forced the girl with glasses to leave. Bridezilla called their bluff and being maids of honor, the bridesmaids left the wedding and decided to celebrate and eat at a restaurant before they head back home. Bridezilla called them several times after they left, telling them that she didn't care about the glasses anymore and begged them to come back to the venue, but they not only refused, but also chose to end the friendship with her altogether. Gemma said that the wedding proceeded as follows, just minus the bridesmaids and a few awkward stares because everyone heard the Bridezillas screaming from earlier. Gemma told me that the Bridezilla has always been like that, throwing a tantrum when she doesn't get her way, and that the meltdown at the wedding was just the last straw for them. Personally, I think she's got a monk's patience if she put up with her for that long. I've been wearing glasses since I was 7 years old, and they've never gotten better. I cannot see without them. I mean, I can see, it's very blurry. I've answered that question before. And constantly, I have to check them. I constantly have to adjust for this just to make sure that, the lights don't show up in the glasses or anything, So I can totally understand the frustration of glasses showing up glasses showing up with like the lights and looking weird. But you deal with it. You hire a photographer that can account for those kind of things, if that's your big thing. No, this is just totally unreasonable. I would not be able to survive a full day without glasses. No, I can see clearly to here. That's it. That is it. So yeah, good on them. Story 5. My stepson called me Dad in front of his friends. I have been with my wife for 4 years. She has a 12-year-old son from a previous relationship. He has never hated me, but it's clear he misses his dad. He's mainly just called me by my name. I don't necessarily like it, but I would never force him to call me Dad. Today he wanted to go with his friends to an amusement park, and he asked me to come with him, which already made me happy, so of course I said yes. But when his friends got in the car, there was one of them whom I've never met before, and he introduced me as his dad. I started smiling when he said that, then I think he noticed, because he looked at me and rolled his eyes while laughing. Right now, they're trying to win a big prize at the park, and I'm still smiling. I know this isn't something huge or anything, but this is genuinely one of the happiest days I've had in a while. You must be doing something right by this kid. Must be doing right to treat him well, for him to call you Dad. Sure, he's got to get over his dad, and yeah, you gave him that space. It looks like you're doing stuff right, and he's willing to acknowledge you as his dad. Great. It's a small victory, but it's a victory. Enjoy it.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 6. Today I fracked up by letting a friend at college convince his girlfriend he had a weekend job as a cargo plane pilot for FedEx. My best friend at uni convinced a girl we were dating that he had a weekend job flying cargo planes for FedEx. This was initially because he wanted to get out of some family event she wanted to drag him to, but it snowballed into an every weekend thing. It sounds like a bizarre random choice of weekend job, but there's a reason behind it. My family owned and ran an aircraft repair business on a municipal airport in Ohio. I grew up with planes. When I was 16, my dad bought me a C-182 Skylane that had been banged up in a bad landing. We spent 2 years restoring it, and I took it with me to uni and kept it at a small airstrip just out of town. I would use it to fly to and from home on weekends and breaks, and often took friends up for a ride. It was a great way to get girls in bed. Something about being up there with a confident guy trading radio calls with ATC seems to just do it for them. My friend, who had never flown in a small plane before he met me, decided it was definitely his jam. I'd let him take the controls occasionally, but never for more than a few minutes, and always at altitude, in case he did something stupid and I had to recover. But as it turned out, That was a mistake of the knowing enough to get yourself in trouble kind. Back to the girlfriend. When she wanted him to go meet her family, he panicked and said he had to work. Where did he work, she wondered. He didn't actually have a job, so he picked the first thing that came to mind. His fantasy dream job. Pilot. But what kind of job would a university student have as a pilot, she wondered. Well, the lie was already out there, so he doubled down. Cargo pilot. And then, to make it believable, he stole my story about growing up with parents who owned an aircraft repair shop, soloing at 15, licensed at 16, owned and restored his own aircraft that he kept by the school. The works. Predictably, it snowballed. He ended up liking the girl a lot and not wanting to break up with her, but he had a weekend job that took him out of town. That part wasn't so hard to maintain because I flew back home pretty much every week, and my parents loved him and always welcomed him for their weekend stay. My dad even let him help out with repairs on a couple of aircraft on the theory that it would teach him a little bit about them. Not enough to keep him out of trouble, as it turned out. It's now maybe 3/4 of the way through the semester, and the girlfriend is either stupid or blinded by love because she's totally believing his absurd story about being a cargo pilot for UPS and owning his own airplane and whatever. I'm sort of well known as the airplane guy on campus, so she's heard of and knows there's a student who occasionally takes girls up on dates. For some bizarre reason, it all makes sense. But there's a problem. Now she wants to go up in a little aircraft with her cargo pilot boyfriend. Why can't we go flying during the week, she wonders. Why can't I come with you in your FedEx airplane when you go on your weekend trip, she wonders. At this point, he should have come clean. They've been intimate for several months. She's probably not going to break up with him. I mean, it's a funny story if you think about it. I'm not really a cargo pilot for FedEx. I don't even know how to fly. Funny, right? But he doesn't. He doubles down on his double down. He tells her he's going to take her flying that evening. And so I get this frantic call in my dorm room. I promised my girlfriend that I would take her flying tonight. You gotta help me. I need to borrow your airplane. I was like, no, you are not going to borrow my airplane. You almost always try to roll us inverted every time I let you take the controls. You've never taken off in it, much less landed. If I let you take it out by yourself, you will unalive everyone on board and anyone with the bad fortune to be in the way when it falls out of the sky. No. But he's desperate, and it's to get laid. So being a bro, I offer a compromise. I will let him pretend to be a pilot and only take over when I think he's doing wrong. I'll even sit right seat and let him wear the white shirt with epaulets with 4 stripes on them that I got as a joke reward present when I passed my PPSEL, Private Pilot Single Engine Land. License, check ride, so he looks like he's a real captain. The time comes and the girlfriend shows up. And it only gets worse. She's a little confused because we've never told her that I'm a pilot too. It would have been too weird. A coincidence that big was too big of a plot hole in his elaborate I'm a cargo pilot for FedEx story. How could he possibly have me and became best friends with a guy who just happened to also be a pilot? It just wouldn't have made sense. So we never mentioned it. And worse, I would occasionally pretend to know nothing about flying. I'd ask questions like, what's it like up there with just the clouds to keep you company? And do you need oxygen even when you're on the ground? Stuff like that to make me sound like a real noob and let him show her what a knowledgeable cargo pilot he was. And so we tripled down on his previous double down. You see, he's been giving me flying lessons. Yeah, that's the ticket. Flying lessons. totally explains why you're taking your friend along on a date. To give him credit, he plays the FedEx cargo pilot really well. I always have new passengers follow me around when I pre-flight. It helps with any anxiety they might have about going up in a small airplane. So he does the same thing with her. We do our walk around, check fuel, control surfaces, oil, prop, gear, etc. He explains exactly why we're checking each thing. Same as I did for him the first time he went flying with me. He shows her how to get into and out of the aircraft, how to work the door latches, her seatbelt, etc. Inside, he hooks her up to the intercom correctly, even. Hell, by that point, I was convinced he was a cargo pilot for FedEx. But as soon as we fire up the engine, things start to unravel. I try to let him use the radio. It's a small airstrip, no tower, so it's not like we absolutely needed it. But he flubs up almost every self-announcement. His radio voice sucks. He's hesitant, stutters, can't remember the tail number, misidentifies the runway, all the things are wrong. And then it's time to take off. By prior agreement, I was to do this without his help. But he switches the intercom to pilot isolation, which cuts off the passengers, i.e. girlfriend's headphones, so we can have a private conversation. You gotta let me take off. She's gonna think something's going on if I don't. I've watched you dozens of times. I can do this. And well, he's desperate, and it's to get laid. So being a bro, I say, okay, I will let him take off, and only take over when I think he's doing it wrong. I line the airplane up at the end of the runway, turn the intercom back to on position, and say, your plane. And then I take my hands off the controls. In retrospect, this was a bad idea. Time to frack up. 3 seconds. Instead of pushing in the throttle, he pulls out the mixture. This tells the carburetor, don't give the engine any more gas. The engine quits. Embarrassed silence. I pitch him an easy save. So that means you've leaned out the engine, right? You said you would show me how to do that the last time you gave me a lesson. He was all, ha ha ha, yeah, leaning out the engine. Yeah, totally. Good lesson. You learned something there, didn't you? I restart the engine for him and then sit back in my seat again. This time, he hits the gas properly. Time to frack up. 9 seconds. He's starting to veer off the runway. I make a point of fighting him for the pedals, hoping the girlfriend wouldn't notice. Mission accomplished. Probably. At least we're heading straight down the center line and not for the row of aircraft parked on the other side of the taxiway. Time to next frack up. 15 seconds. We're approaching 70 kts airspeed. Time to rotate. Time to rotate. Why are you fracking not pulling back on the fracking controls? He's not fracking pulling back on the fracking controls, and the aircraft is lifting off a bit on its own. Not terrible, but not great either. I casually nudge the yoke backward. He catches the hint. Time to next frack up. 2 seconds. He yanks back too far, and we're popping up way too fast. This isn't a fracking Blue Angels air show, damn it. I start to do something about it. Time to next frack up. Nanoseconds. He's doing the same thing he always does, pulling down on the yoke with his left hand. I've told him about this 1,000 times. It always makes the plane try to do an aileron roll. Or would, if I didn't take over. So now we're nose up to the sky at a high angle of attack and about to do a wing over. At roughly 30 feet off the ground. This is not a good thing. Sure, it's for a good cause, getting a bro laid. But can you reasonably expect to get laid after someone shovels the raspberry jam that used to be your torso into a body bag? I'm guessing not. About the time when we're in an absurdly low-altitude 60-degree bank, I've had enough. You're rolling my plane, I yell, and reach over to karate chop his arms off of the yoke. I pitch down, level off, and regain control of the aircraft. Nobody says a word as I finish the climb to about 1,000 feet AGL, re-enter the pattern on the downward leg, and then bring us down to a landing. All without any help from my instructor, the cargo plane pilot. The only thing I remember her saying on the drive back to the dorms was, "You're not really a FedEx pilot, are you?" They broke up a few days later. The story made the rounds on campus, and my friend took no end of smeg for it, for which I gladly take credit. I called him FedEx for the next 2 years. To the point where the nickname stuck, and other people started using it too. Way to go, FedEx. I think my dad was the worst, though. Between being mad at me for risking lives and an aircraft, which was a much more serious offense to an old A&P mechanic, and laughing his butt off at my friend for trying to pull off a months-long masquerade as a FedEx pilot, he dished so much smeg at us, it almost made me want to not go home for a while. Other than the breakup and the nickname, there wasn't really much other fallout. It even worked to his advantage a few times because girls actually thought the story was funny, and it got him laid at least one time that I know of, which I guess means that in a way the whole thing was a success. We stayed friends until graduation but lost touch, so I have no idea if he ever got his own pilot's license and bought an airplane as he said he would. But even if he didn't, I like to think of him out there charming the babes with stories about flying for FedEx on the weekends and offering to take them up flying soon, someday. FedEx. What up, FedEx? Think you're jumping the gun there, FedEx? Do you know what you're doing, FedEx? I can imagine. That's an awesome name. I would like to think that he went on to actually get a license. I'm sorry. Sometimes the stories are not enough and you actually have to go in and get it. I hope he became a pilot, and I hope he worked for UPS, but still got the nickname FedEx and had to explain it.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.